Alright folks, welcome back to the 40th night here on Uncle 3's Ghost Story channel. Now, if you've been following my tales, you know that when people die with unresolved grudges, their spirits often return. They come back to find those who wronged them and exact their revenge. In Asia, we believe that ghosts don't just appear out of nowhere. They show up because they want you to see them. Or maybe, just maybe, you're one of those rare folks who can glimpse into the spirit world. Maybe your third eye was opened at some point. Or perhaps you were simply born with that gift. You don't just stumble upon a ghost by accident. Not clearly, anyway. Tonight's story comes from a guy named Ryan, living in Singapore. It's a really good one he shared with me, a tale from long ago. I pressed Ryan for all the details, given the grave nature of what happened. Believe it or not, this isn't just a spooky yarn. It's a real-life murder case, and a pretty gruesome one at that. What's truly baffling, though, is that I couldn't find any information about it online from that time. Maybe the local papers covered it, but it never made it to the Singaporean internet, if you can believe it. Ryan, our storyteller, was both a witness and in a way, right in the thick of it all, discovering the horrors lurking in his neighborhood. So, cast your minds back to 1990 down. Ryan moved into a new house in a rather bustling part of Singapore. I can't spill the beans on the exact address, as folks still live there, but it was in a tight alleyway. After about a year in his new digs, a new neighbor moved in next door, a woman named Wong, who was married. Now, as soon as her husband moved in, a deep animosity sparked between him and Ryan. This husband, about Ryan's age, was a real piece of work. He hadn't worked a day since marrying Ms. Wong 5 years prior. For the first 2 years, this guy drove Ryan absolutely crazy. Every single morning, he'd drag out a charcoal stove and light it up right outside. The problem? The wind always blew the smoke directly into Ryan's house. They were practically living on top of each other. Ryan, being a decent guy, went over several times to talk to him politely. But the neighbor just ignored him and completely brushed him off. Eventually, Ryan lost his temper and smashed the guy's charcoal stove. That led to a huge fight between them. But just a few days later, the neighbor was back with a brand new stove, lighting it up again. Ryan used to wonder if the guy thought he was a rat, constantly trying to smoke him out day after day. This went on for 2 years. Eventually, Ryan just kinda got used to the daily smoke out and stopped paying so much attention to his annoying neighbor. Then one evening, Ryan was out having some beers with friends. Among them was a man who used to be a colleague of that very annoying neighbor. Ryan seized the chance and asked his friend what his neighbor used to do for a living, since he'd been home for nearly 2 years now, doing nothing. The friend told him that the neighbor used to be a construction worker, a really skilled one too, not an architect or engineer, just a regular, talented builder. Ryan couldn't wrap his head around how he managed to snag Ms. Wong. From Ryan's perspective, she was absolutely beautiful and wealthy to boot, rich enough to support this guy for 2 years. At least, the story just kept unfolding. By the 3rd year, Ryan's business took off, and he started building his house up to 3 stories, complete with a rooftop terrace. Oddly enough, his neighbors did the exact same thing, building their house up 3 stories with an identical rooftop. Ryan thought, perfect, now he'll take his charcoal stove up there every morning, and the wind will just carry the smoke away, or over their roof, far from my place. But his relief was short-lived. Every single morning, that cursed neighbor still dragged the stove to his front door, right outside, and started burning charcoal. Ryan was absolutely seething, but he just kept quiet, trying to tolerate it. This ridiculous routine continued for another year, making it 4 years in total. The real chill began in 1994. It was around New Year's, and Ryan was up on his rooftop smoking. He was just gazing out, lost in thought about how far he'd come in Singapore, building his own home, planning to bring his parents over. Life was finally looking up for him. As he was enjoying his cigarette, he glanced over at his troublesome neighbor's rooftop, and that's when he saw it. A naked man, frail and gaunt, looked to be in his 70s, with skin the color of grayish-blue. The man was huddled in a corner of the rooftop. Ryan jumped, completely freaked out, dropping his cigarette. He yelled, "What? What in the world?" But when he steadied himself, the man was still there, shivering and staring right back at him. Ryan noticed a glint of tears in the old man's eyes. He bolted downstairs and called for his wife to come up. "Honey, honey," he cried from the rooftop stairs. She came running, but when they stepped back onto the rooftop, the old man was gone. This made Ryan even more suspicious, and let's be honest, he already despised those neighbors. So, he called the local police. He reported that his neighbors were illegally detaining a naked man, about 70 years old, who was crying. Ryan was convinced they were holding someone captive. 2 police officers were dispatched. They went in, looked around thoroughly, front and back, but found absolutely nothing. When they came back out, they told Ryan, "There's nothing in there. We checked every single floor. Everything seems normal. Are you sure you didn't imagine it?" Ryan shot back, "I didn't imagine a thing. And I can guarantee you, when I saw that man, I stood right at my front door, watching, so those 2 couldn't move him and get rid of the evidence. You 2 need to check again." But the officers insisted, "There's nothing. We went in there, we checked." The 2 cops walked away. But then, for some reason, known only to them, they had a change of heart. They turned right back around and went back to the neighbor's house, this time bringing along about 6 more officers, making it a total of 8. They then demanded a more thorough search of the house. Now, with all those police showing up, the neighbors started to get curious. Even Ryan was puzzled, since the police had just said there was nothing there. Ryan went downstairs to his front door, eager to find out what was happening. That's when he started hearing all sorts of new gossip about his neighbors. Even though he'd lived there for 4 years, he hadn't known much about them, unlike the folks he interacted with daily. He learned that Miss Wong was an elementary school teacher. Her husband, the builder, never worked a day in his life, except for taking their kids to school. But the truly bizarre thing was, he consistently fanned that charcoal stove every single morning. Not just Ryan, but none of the other neighbors understood why he kept doing it. So, when the police finally got back in and proposed another search, they specifically went to the bedroom. What they found up there was really weird. A cement block built right into the bedroom. These officers brought in crowbars and drills to break it open. It turned out that when the police had initially tapped the block. It sounded hollow. They had asked for permission to break it open, and the husband's reaction had been incredibly strange. He started sweating profusely and looked terrified. The teacher wife was equally scared. They immediately refused the police's request. That's what made the police officers suspicious, leading them to return with a larger team to break open that cement block. What happened next? Ryan heard secondhand what happened, but he was still a key witness. When the police finally broke it open, they found 2 bodies inside. 2 bodies! But Ryan had only seen one living man earlier. Even more horrifying, the bodies were 2 women. One elderly, one young. Not the man he'd seen at all. Ryan was completely bewildered. Forensic teams soon arrived. The police cleared everyone out to do their work, and after everything was done, they arrested Ms. Wong and her husband. Here's the true story. Ryan later pieced together. The couple had conspired to murder Wong's own mother and older sister, burying them in that cement block. So why would they do such a monstrous thing? It goes like this. Ms. Wong, the teacher, was the youngest in her family, with a mother, father, and an older sister. Her older sister was a lesbian. She didn't want to marry a man. She wanted a wife and dreamed of leaving home. Wong, seeing this, decided that if her sister was going to be gay, then she, as the other daughter, would stay unmarried to take care of her parents. At that time, her parents and Wong herself were quite prejudiced against homosexuals. They simply couldn't accept their daughter being a lesbian. So the father, disapproving, went and drafted a will, leaving all of his assets, including the family home, solely to Wong. Wong at this point still seemed sweet and agreeable. But here's where it turns dark. After the father passed away, right after the funeral, Wong announced that she was kicking her mother and sister out of the house. Then she married her husband, and they completely took over the property. Of course, there were arguments, and on that fateful night, Wong's mother and lesbian sister came to talk to her, wanting to sell the house and split the inheritance. They just wanted enough money to live on, since all the assets had been left to Wong. That night, during the heated argument, Wong's husband hit her mother and sister, killing them both. Afterward, he poured cement, built the block, and buried the 2 women inside. This is where the supernatural truly began. As I mentioned at the start, those who die unjustly often try to return for revenge. Every single morning, between 5 and 7 a.m., a horrific stench would waft from that house. But here's the kicker. No one else in the alley smelled it. Only the murderous couple. They were terrified. The husband had to burn charcoal every day, fearing that the entire neighborhood would catch the smell. He'd constantly fan the flames, filling the whole alley with thick smoke, so people would only smell the acrid fumes, not the foul odor of decay. It was a classic case of a guilty conscience. The husband was so scared of his crime being discovered that he quit his job and spent 4 years relentlessly burning charcoal, essentially smoking out Ryan next door. But as they say, crime cannot be hidden forever. The neighbors in the area speculated that the terrible smell wasn't from the bodies, but possibly from the spirit of Ms. Wong's own father. They believed that after his death, the father, seeing his daughter's wickedness, kicking out his wife and eldest child, created the smell to alert Ryan, hoping he would call the police, and the naked old man Ryan saw on the rooftop. That was likely the father's spirit. After he died, he must have realized how evil his daughter and son-in-law truly were. So, he manifested hoping to warn Ryan, which ultimately led to the horrifying case being uncovered. It was a truly shocking and gruesome discovery. Even with the case solved, I still wonder, why didn't the spirits of the innocent mother and lesbian sister, murdered and entombed in cement, appear? Perhaps Wong used some kind of dark charm to imprison their souls, preventing them from escaping to seek vengeance. You know the saying, paper can't wrap fire, but the murderous couple forgot about the father's spirit. He was the first to die in that house, and he was able to see and witness all the horrific actions of his own daughter and son-in-law. They kicked out his wife and eldest child, denied them any inheritance, and then murdered them. At the very moment he saw his son-in-law and daughter kill his wife and sister, he was powerless. The father could only weep, trapped there, crying, and that, my friends, is why Ryan saw the emaciated crying father on the rooftop. And so, this chilling spiritual tale concludes our 40th night here on Uncle Three's Ghost Story channel. I'll see you all back for the 41st.